Okay, we are live. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. This is Patrick Milliken from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it is a real treat to have this panel discussion today about this remarkable new anthology that just came out, "The End of the World as We Know It," New Tales of Stephen King's The Stand. And I have with us one of the book's editors, and of course, legendary author Brian Keene with us today, and he's going to pinch hit and do most of the heavy lifting as the moderator. But I'll pitch in with some questions too, and then I'll just go across the screen. Alma Katsu, Catriona Ward, Meg Gardiner, and Gabino Iglesias, all wonderful writers. And boy, what an inspired collection! As a way to kind of kick it off, this book, it's one of those, modern masterpieces that, you know, it, it, people that are fans of it, like yourself and Chris Golden and everybody who's been involved in this project, obviously has such an intimate kind of abiding relationship with this book. It's kind of an endless source of inspiration. And Brian, I wanted to ask you as kind of a way to kick it off here. I was reading in your afterword where you mentioned that talked a little bit about your relationship with the stand, and that recently or a while ago you were injured. You were in the burn ward in
Oh
the
yeah.
in the hospital, and your wife visited you with three items. Do you want to kick it off by describing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said in the afterword, I've been reading it since paperback publication. That was the old, what they call now the cut version. I was 13 years old when that came out, and I have read it at least once a year since then. I'll be 58 next month. That's a lot of times. Um, and yeah, when I was in the burn ward, and I was in pretty bad shape. It was touch and go there for a little bit, but they allowed my wife in briefly, and she brought me three things without me telling, without me asking. She brought me a Moleskine notebook to write in. She brought me a pen to write with, and she brought me my copy of The Stand. And there's Wrath joining us now. Um, so so yeah, my grandmother turns 100 years old in 2 months. Um, she's very religious. She can quote the entire Bible by heart. In fact, she can't read anymore. Her eyesight has failed her, but she can still read the Bible out loud without actually looking at the words. I'm almost to that point with The Stand. The Stand, without spoilers, David J. Scow's story in this book, I feel that very much. That's kind of how I am with this novel.
Welcome, Wrath. Hey, I'm Patrick from the Poison Pen. We thought you might not make it, so I apologize for starting, but it's a delight to see you. Thanks
Uh,
for joining us.
oh, no problem. It's 7 a.m. here today, so where I'm at.
You're on the
Good
other side of the
Forgive,
morning.
world.
forgive me if I'm a little bleary-eyed.
Well, Brian, do you want to talk a little bit just about getting this project off the ground? I mean, clearly this was a labor of love, and you assembled a remarkable cast of writers.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris is one of my oldest friends in this business. I've known him just about as long as I've known Wrath, almost 30 years. And while we have wildly different writing styles and audiences, we share a similar love for a lot of things. One of those things being The Stand. We had edited an anthology together that was a tribute to Joe Lansdale's Drive-In series. We had fun doing it. We found out we worked well together. It was well received, but Chris said, "Oh, that's it. I don't want to do any more anthologies. I have too many novels I want to write." And I said, "Okay." And then about 3 days later, he called me and he said, "I still don't want to do any more anthologies, but wouldn't it be cool if we could convince Steve to let us do a book about the stand?" I said, "That would be cool. He's going to say no, but we should ask him anyway." So he emailed Steve, CC'd me on it, and hey Steve, Brian and I were talking, and we'd like to do this. And I was adamant Steve was going to say no. he not only didn't say no, he replied within like 5 minutes, all caps, do it, with four exclamation points. So I thought he was messing with us. Hey, Steve, are you sure about this? This is Chris and Brian. Do it. So then we realized what we'd actually done. Um, it was about 3.5 years in the making total. And the first part was figuring out who the roster should be. And it was sort of like sports trading. I'm not a sports guy, but I understand they trade players back and forth. We each came up with a list of 200 people we thought should be in the book. Then we picked the same names off those lists. We had our master list. Then we convinced the publisher to give us just about the same word count as the novel. Um, we opted not to include stories by ourselves because that's two more slots we could give to other people. Um, and then we let these wonderful writers do the rest. And boy, did they.
Yeah, one of the I've done a couple of anthologies and assembled them, and there is an art to kind of crafting a narrative with all the assembled pieces that you get in. It's almost like in some ways doing remember those old mixtapes you would put together? You got to get the exact right kind of order of stories. How did you do that?
Um, we we invited people in stages. Um, and what happened is we realized, okay, we're going to split the book. Originally, it was going to be three parts. Story set during the spread of the virus, story set when everybody's migrating to Boulder or Vegas, and story set after the conclusion of the novel. Um, so when we were getting that initial wave of stories, we could kind of go through and see, okay, we need some more set after the novel. We need some more set here. So when we would invite the next wave of writers, we could, kind of guide them. An exception to that was Wrath. When Wrath got his invite, he told Chris and I, he said, the one thing the stand never showed is what Captain Trips was doing in the hood. I want to do that. And we're like, okay, because how are you going to tell Wrath no, first of all? um, so then it was a matter of going back and saying, okay, where does his fit among the ones we already have for that section? The other, the big thing to do was watching continuity. We decided the complete uncut edition was our version. So let's say, for example, Alma sets a story in Indiana. I have to see, is it before or after Trash Can Man passed through there in the novel? If it's after, her character has to notice that the oil tanks blew up. Um, did Meg also set a story where a character goes through Indiana? If so, how does that impact Alma's story? And how do they tie in with the novel? So it was like a big jigsaw puzzle, but I love jigsaw puzzles. So Chris had the hard job. He did, the actual copy editing and line editing. I got to do the continuity editing, which is fun.
Well, thank
You,
you.
I was going to say, did you kind of was there any assigning of different pieces? Like this is what we want. Can you give us a story in this particular place?
Um, Only one that I remember. Ronald Malfi had two pitches. Um, and we both liked his pitch for a story set after the conclusion of the novel. We thought it would really slot in well with the others. Um, and then there were two, as I said, originally the book was going to have three parts. It ends up having four because there were two stories that just didn't fit in anywhere else. One of those is David Scow's. The other one is Nat Cassidy's, which I'm not going to spoil for readers, but we gave the authors a list of do's and don'ts. And Nat crumpled that up and threw it over his shoulder and did everything we told them not to do. And he did it so well, we had no choice but to put it in. It is a love letter not only to the stand, but to all of King's work and his constant readers. And I mean, it is a deep cut album track.
That's wonderful. So do you think it might be useful if we kind of go around our group of authors here and maybe ask each of you to describe, maybe a little bit about your individual story, but also about your relationship with The Stand. I'm sure there were some contributors, it's just the odds, who probably said, "Oh no, I have not read The Stand. I better do that." Um, so can we go around and just kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your contribution? Let's start with Alma.
Well, as luck would have it, Patrick, you picked one of the authors who said, I haven't read The Stand. I had read other Stephen King, but I knew I wanted to be part of it. So I told the guys if they felt like that disqualified me, that was fine. But they were so kind. And they said, sure, you have a week to read it. No, just kidding. And so I read it and was able to come up with something. The story that I wrote, Make Your Own Way, is told from the perspective of a young woman whose entire family ends up dying on her. And she lives in a very, very remote, rural, mountainous area of farmers, basically. And and now she's got to figure out, what is she going to do with her life? She's pretty much alone, and this young man wanders up to the farm. I really wanted to write about the dilemma that women are going to face in a situation like that, figuring out who you can trust, who you can't trust, and really learning to trust yourself. And the part that was most fun for me, is that it's really set where I live. I live on a mountaintop in West Virginia. And so I was just imagining my neighbors, who are all pretty down to earth, tough people. Everybody here knows how to use a shotgun, for instance, um, just to sort of show what they're capable of in a situation like this.
But it has, I thought yours had at least sort of for a short portion of it, almost a kind of where are you going, where have you been kind of vibe, the Joyce Carol Oates short story.
Oh
Do you
gosh,
remember?
I didn't even think of that.
For me, it resonated a lot with that. But anyway,
Well, you
sorry, I
learn
didn't mean
so
to
much.
interrupt you.
No, you learn so much talking to other writers. Well, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, well, I imagine that, having the experience of reading it for the first time, gave unique perspective as opposed to people who knew this, like Brian, who know it, almost verbatim. Um, yeah, different experiences, I'm sure.
But
Very much.
sometimes knowing it verbatim got in the way.
Yeah.
Alma's story and Catriona's story both. Again, without spoilers, in Alma's story, I had to do math and figure out how many horses were left alive in the aftermath. In Catriona's story, I actually called a buddy of mine who was a zookeeper, and I said, "Explain to me the African painted dog versus the American domesticated dog. Is this
Different.
scientifically viable?"
Different. It's different. It's very
Yep,
different. Yeah,
very
yeah.
different. Um,
I think we just spoiled it. I think that's okay.
well, I mean, the title kind of spoils it.
Yeah, exactly. No, fair enough. Yeah, exactly. I can't believe that you have a zoo. First of all, you have a zookeeper friend. That's amazing.
Doing this long enough, you've got a friend in, garbage man, rocket scientist,
You
zookeeper.
need, you need a zoo dentist, doctor, lawyer, zookeeper. Well done, well done, well done.
We should also say that, Brian is being very humble because in the introduction that Stephen wrote, he made a point of saying one of the reasons he agreed was that he's such an admirer of yours and Chris's work. And I think that speaks a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, that must have been great to hear that.
it was.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. It was.
Catriona, how about you? Tell us about your relationship with the book and your story.
Well, 13-year-old me is still screaming, very loudly, because it never occurred to me ever as a writer that this would be something that I would be allowed to do. Stephen King would even know my name, even briefly. It's still a thing. But the Stand was kind of my Lord of the Rings. It was my big epic fantasy, and it's such an amazing book about. Because I have a very conflicted relationship with nationality, because I've never spent any more than 3 years in any particular place. So I was born in Washington, D.C., and then I moved to Kenya for 3 years, and then I moved to Madagascar for 3 years, and then I moved to Morocco for 3 years, and I moved back to D.C. for 3 years, and I moved to Yemen for 3 years. You get the picture. And but the place I'd always lived most was the US. And there was something about there's a Welsh word called href, which is a longing for a home you've never known. And the stand sort of fulfilled that longing. It felt like whereas the Lord of the Rings, it's not home. That's the whole point of it. It's other. It's secondary world, and But whereas the stand, it felt like places I knew and people I knew, and it felt like home, even though I hadn't known those homes very long. So it was very affecting for me, and to be asked to do it, although quite late, Brian, quite late. I'll be honest, quite bloody late. Never mind, we'll get to that. We'll talk about this afterwards. But it was incredible, and I'd already started writing, and Chris wrote to me and was like, are you doing it? And I was like, of course I'm doing it. He said, well, just thinking maybe there should be like a Watership Down. Should there be a Watership Down? And I thought, well, I think we can do better than that. I think we can do something that's really built into the DNA of the stand structure and mythology. So the African painted dog came into being, which is it's about two African wild dogs who are in a zoo during the start of Captain Trips, and gradually someone comes around and shoots all the zoo animals one by one. As the pandemic gets worse, they hide because they are the ultimate survivors, and eventually during a thunderstorm they get out. And it's all about their search for a home and their pack. And I remember Caroline Kepner and I shared our stories with each other, and I remember getting a text from her, like sort of, I'd wake up to a text from her going, meet, because I was trying to think about what would a dog want or think about, and basically most of their inner dialogue goes meet, wife. But there's a great deal of love within their relationship. It's about Tak 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 and Cha Cha Cha, who are two dogs who are brothers. And there's a part where they say Tak Tak Tak, who's our narrator, says, we're going to have to eat each other soon, me and my brother, but we don't blame each other for it. And I just thought it's very the stand.
That's amazing. Meg, how about you?
The Stand was the first Stephen King novel I read. Someone had to tell me who Stephen King was to tell me to read that, and nothing has topped it for me since I read the cut version in 1980. It's still it. And after Chris and Brian invited me to contribute, at which point they're like, would you be? And by the time I just even read the first line in the email, I was like clawing my way through the screen and diving in and trying to grab hold of them because I wanted to do it so much. I was so honored and daunted and thrilled. And I of course reread the novel, and this time I was traveling when I was over the course of the couple of weeks that I was rereading it, and there were so many people who just saw me with the physical book in my hand and came up and they said, have you ever read it before? Have you ever? And I just said, yes, I have. And they were just, they wanted to gush. They wanted to talk about it because, I mean, these were just total strangers passing by me in an airport concourse who saw it in my hands. So I knew that I was not the only one who had lurched into its world, and
Like a sisterhood and a brotherhood, right?
yeah. So when I started writing, I wanted to write a story set at a place we'd seen, but not during the pandemic. So my story is called Bright Light City. and which was the opening line to Viva Las Vegas, bright light city, gonna set my soul. And we all know what happens in Vegas, but we don't see the pandemic in Vegas. We see people trying to come there who are drawn there. But I wanted to say, what happened to the people who were there when the super flu arrived, and what about the people that didn't want to stay there and wanted to get out? So Vegas, I've never written anything in Vegas, so I said it there. It's about a flight attendant who is like still healthy. So of course the airline is begging her to take all of their jaunts around the country as things get worse and worse and worse and worse. And it turns out she's on the last flight. That's what's supposed to be the last flight out of Las Vegas, and the plane literally doesn't get off the ground. But all she's wanted to do is run away from everything her whole life. But she saves an unaccompanied minor on the flight, a little girl named Molly, who was being sent to San Francisco to ride it out with her dad. And they end up there in Las Vegas with the miasma of death, and then this kind of sense of reconstitution. They meet another character who's from one of my series novels, one of my first series, a series that I know Stephen King has read and really helped launch for me in the United States. So I put the character of Jesse Blackburn in there as a teenager. In my novels, he's in his late 20s, but here he's 17, and I wanted that to throw that as a kiss to him. And everything's terrible. My favorite character in the story
Everything's terrible.
Everything's terrible in the story, but people get on with it. Some people are trying to get on with killing and capturing and torturing everyone, and others just want to survive. So we're trying to figure out if the flight attendant Danny Cooper is going to rise to the occasion, and she's helped out by the mentor figure is also an homage to my mother-in-law. She appears in this version in the airport concourse with a cigarette in her mouth, cat's eye shades, pulling on the slot machine as the world burns around her. And so that's because my dear late mother-in-law loved Las Vegas almost as much as she loved her grandchildren. So I wanted to just salute her for that. So it's about the horror, but also about the presence of hope, even in those moments.
Sounds like you had a blast writing it.
Oh my God. Yes.
Gabino, how about you?
Of course, what I was drinking. Awesome. I don't know, man. That relationship to the book. I did an event with Meg here at Book People here in Austin, and we talked about that briefly. I was again, I noticed a trend here. I was about 13, and I became obsessed with post-apocalyptic fiction. So my life was Earth Abides, Swan Song, Alas Babylon, and The Stand. And then The Stand, there's people who love it. Some people might not like it that much. It's not a book that does not leave a mark. So there's, every author has like a bunch of books that's like, well, this is before and after I read Hunter S. Thompson. This is before and after I encountered William Burroughs. This is before and after I read The Stand. So as a horror writer, one of those first big how I saw literature and storytelling before and afters was The Stand. And I always wanted to write something like it, because all those tropes from, post-apocalyptic fiction are so much fun. And when these two fine gentlemen, or at least Christopher Golden, Colin, it was obviously a yes. Chris is one of the nicest human beings in the world, and he deserves all the good things. And Brian knows where the buddies are, so you want to keep him happy. All right. So it was an immediate yes. as soon as I said yes, the fear kicked in. It was like, number one, I have to bring something somewhat original. Number two, Chris Golden and Brian Keene are going to read this story trying to make it better, so I better bring my A game. And I knew two things. I knew that I wanted it to be in Puerto Rico because obviously, I write noir. Well, do you write LA noir or New York noir? It's Austin noir. And I knew everybody has to go to Boulder or Las Vegas. But it's 99.4% of the world, not the United States. So I was one of those who wanted to take the story out of the country and go see other places. And then I had this thing about writing a somewhat ambiguous ending, just to try it out and see if that landed. And I think that was the one part that they didn't change. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad and I'm happy for all the good things that are going to happen now to Chris and Brian, and I hope they realize they have to do it again fairly soon.
Wrath, how about you?
So I'm one of those also who read The Stand when I was probably about 13, 12 or 13. And then the unabridged version came out when I was 16 or 17. And I remember that year because we were broke. So that year for Christmas, I told my mom that that's all I wanted. Just give me that book. Because it was, for me, expensive at the time. I think it was like $25, which at the time, being a broke kid in Philadelphia, that was expensive. So that year, that's what I got. I got The Stand, and I got it after all my friends had already read it, and I remember just devouring that book in, so I don't know, days, like literally reading around the clock and reading that book. So when I was asked to do it, of course, I wanted to set it back in Philadelphia in the same house I grew up in, the same house where I read The Stand. Uh, and just to imagine my neighborhood and what it would be like if all these things happened in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So I populated it with characters that I knew when I was growing up. Some of them I changed the names, some of them I didn't. But, the ones I didn't are dead anyway. So, but I wanted to show what would happen in a neighborhood like that because I grew up in a fairly rough neighborhood, to put it mildly, and I remember in the neighborhood I grew up in when there was a house on fire. That was like an event. Like people came out and watched the house burn and talked, and there was music playing, and as we watched the firemen work. If there was a blackout, forget it. It was it was every man for himself. I mean, it was a rough neighborhood, and an event like a global pandemic that was literally dropping bodies all around you. I could just imagine what it would be like in a neighborhood where everyone is so bored and so broke and so angry and so depressed and everything that a house fire becomes an event. A pandemic that was literally killing your neighbors. Some people would view it the same way. Some of it would view it as an opportunity to settle scores, to assuage their own like envy and jealousy and steal the things that they've coveted all this time. And so I wanted to show that. And so my story, I also wanted to write something very violent.
You
Because
succeeded.
And if I can touch on that, Wrath is known as an extreme horror writer. Because horror these days is not just horror. There's all these subgenres and other labels. And one of the things Chris and I really wanted to do was take a snapshot of where horror fiction is at right now. So we were going for mainstream authors. We were going for indie authors, veterans, new folks coming up. And you'll remember we talked, and he said, I'm paraphrasing, but how Wrath James White can I be? And I said, I want you to bring Wrath James White. And you did, you know. And so far, readers have not been flinching at it. I mean, they're flinching, but in a good way, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, there was I read one review where someone had mentioned the violence in the first section of the book. And I'm like, he's talking about me. They said that the violence went beyond the normal Stephen King type stories. I was like, yeah, he's talking about me.
I've got a question for all of you. You know, Wrath, knowing your mom, knowing how close you all are, and you know, she bought you that copy of The Stand, and really for the rest of you, but how did your loved ones react when you told them you were getting this opportunity? Because I want to tell you about my mom. My mom never cares what I'm doing in this business. She cares what my friends are doing. She got very excited this week because Wrath was on NBC. She never misses, you know, she never misses the opportunity to tell me, Joe Hill was on the Today Show. How come you haven't been on the Today Show? But when she found out we were publishing you, Meg, then she got excited. Finally, she was proud of her boy. Yeah, she's a fan of yours. So.
Oh, tell her
Now
thank
she's
you.
excited. You know Meg Gardiner. I didn't know you knew Meg Gardiner.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Poor, just warms my heart.
so like did you all have good reactions from your loved ones? Did they understand what this meant to you, this opportunity?
They did. I was with my son and his then fiance when I got the email. I think we were standing in line at a taco truck, and I kind of gasped and said that you were doing this and wanted me to take part. And their eyes just bugged out. And the book does mean a lot to my family. My daughter. When she went into labor, she had a go bag. She had everything prepped, packed, tiny little blankets, like comfy socks for her to wear at the hospital. And she got a fresh paperback copy of The Stand.
Oh wow.
She said she didn't know how long she was going to be in labor. I said, it better not be that long, honey.
So what's interesting is my fiance and I had only been dating for a few months, and she knew I was a writer. She'd actually read some of my stuff, but when I told her that I was invited to be in this anthology, uh, I think she thought that we were just doing some little fan fiction things, me and my friends, and didn't really get it. And then when we were on the panel at Scares That Cares, and everyone was so excited to hear what the table of contents was going to be, and people were literally there with notepads to write down the names as Brian said them. She really got it. And then she goes, "Oh, wait a minute, this is big. This is like Stephen King is going to read this. Like this is." And she, to this day, like just yesterday, she apologized for not giving it the gravitas that it needed at the time. She goes, "I didn't know." Like it's just like, "I'm sorry, I didn't give you the reaction that you probably wanted when you told me." But yeah, like she gets it now, and I think that's she's quite impressed.
I had a little weird situation because my mom is not a reader, but she's a TV person. So she's a huge Stephen King fan. When I was young, she had a VHS, the double tape VHS copy of the Tommyknockers.
Oh yeah.
So this was the one thing in my entire career where I was like, I'm doing a thing, and then Stephen King's gonna write the intro. And she was like, wait a minute. So like Stephen King said, y'all can do this, and he's gonna read the stories, he's gonna read your stuff. And this is the height of my career. Unfortunately for my dad, who is a reader, in April of last year, I was in France with Catriona and Sean Cosby, And Sean and I had drinks with John Grisham. So the next day, that was, oh, you're a writer because you had drinks with John Grisham. But when I told him this, it was not drinks with John Grisham level. So unless I can have drinks with Stephen King, there's no more impressing my dad ever. So hopefully that'll happen someday. But yeah, but for my mom, it was like, oh, you're doing real things with real people that I've heard of. So that's awesome.
Is it so I hadn't actually thought about this before you asked that question, but this is the last thing of mine that my mother read before she died. Um, I just hadn't, for some reason, I hadn't taken that in. But she was, because she was born in Scotland and then moved, grew up in Zimbabwe, and then obviously we moved all over the place. But she loved Africa. Her heart was always in Africa, and I think it was she loved it. It was the last thing she read and could read before she thought about that. But yeah, well done, well done, well done, Brian. No, thank you, thank you. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. So, and she was very, because it's all about the longing for, again, that sort of hireth, that longing for home, um, and I think she has always felt. I know, and in fact, I know she always felt a great longing for, you know, yeah, for the Great Plains, for the savannah, for the Masai Mara, and all of that. So, I think yeah. So it meant a lot to me. And my father is a very difficult Englishman, very phlegmatic. He just went, "Oh, yes, it's quite good, isn't it? It's quite good." Yeah, which I think is all you can expect from an Englishman. So, but yeah, yeah. So yeah, like yeah,
I'm glad you
interesting.
got to share that with her.
Me too. God, yeah, me too, actually. Yeah, me too. Thank you. Yeah.
Alma, how about you?
Well, as usual, I'm always the outlier. I can only I can only think it's because of I worked in intelligence for so long. I don't really tell a lot of people what I'm doing. So, and I almost never tell my family. My husband, of course, I
Do you
told
tell
him
them afterwards, though? Do you share afterwards, like share the work later,
sometimes.
or?
I have a niece and her husband, he's an
Yeah.
aspiring horror writer. They love horror.
Mm.
They've hung around the New England horror community. So I sent him one of the contributors' copies, for instance. But
Yeah.
other than that, my family, my side of the family, not my husband's side, they're all these very strange Yankees and just
Mm.
it doesn't pay to tell them anything. So no, I
Strange
didn't.
Yankees is an amazing phrase as well. All these strange
Well,
Yankees.
not strange for Yankees, but Yankees are very stoic and hard to impress and all that sort of thing. And I just gave up on them many,
Mm.
many years ago.
Alma, are they watching? Is the question.
Well, that's no, of course not. I didn't tell them about the event. I mean, I'll give you an
Oh.
example. My next book, Fiend, is
Mm.
about a terrible father, right? And how he ruins his children. I haven't
Yeah.
told my family that I wrote this.
No. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
so autobiographical. Anyway,
Mm. Alma.
I just
It's amazing.
one of my spies just told me that a couple of days ago Stephen King attended one of your events in
Yes.
Maine.
Yeah, the giveaway should have been that Rich was originally going to be at the signing at my store, Vortex in Columbia, Pennsylvania. And a week before, it was announced that he was not going to be at Vortex. Instead, he was going to the signing in Bangor, Maine. That should have been a
Mm.
giveaway right there that something was up.
Mm.
But yeah, uh, from what I understand, he was really excited and he was really glad to be a part of it.
I remember when, this is not on topic, but I remember when I did an event with Rich in Pennsylvania, and he was texting Stephen King all the way through the event. And it was so expletive deleted fucking stress. Sorry, I didn't delete the expletive. So fucking stressful. I was like, why? He just kept like texting Stephen King all the way through. Stephen King was texting back, and I was just like,
What a show off.
I wasn't going to say, but
Let me ask some of you there are questions that are coming in, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Let's see. Uh, okay. Robin says, if there's time, ask if Mother Abigail shows up in any form in these stories.
Yes, without spoilers.
mm,
I'm assuming Robin doesn't want the spoilers. Mother Abigail makes several appearances, and the story written by Maurice Broaddus and Wayne Brady, in fact, stars Mother Abigail. She's the main character.
Cool. Here's one for you, Meg. Thomas says, I'm excited to read this new anthology. I'm a voracious reader of anything Meg Gardiner writes. Will there be any more Unsub and Joe Beckett books?
I would love for there to be more books of every character I've ever written. Uh, we'll see. That's all I can say. I would say Caitlin Hendricks, who's the protagonist of the Unsub novels, is her story is not finished, and there's certainly room for Joe Beckett. And I would love to see what both of these women get up to next. Joe is a forensic psychiatrist. Caitlin is an FBI agent who hunts serial predators. And until human nature changes, they're both going to have plenty of work. So.
There you go. Okay, so we have an Italian fan who's always watching, named Stefania, and she wants to know if this book is going to appear in Italian or has it already.
Uh, I I don't think it has been published yet in Italy, but I would be shocked if it isn't eventually translated into Italian
it's doing really
and many
well.
other languages.
Have you said about the ranking today, Brian? About the ranking on
Oh,
Amazon today? Like,
I have, but because I love Poison Pen, they hosted one of my best signings ever. I didn't want to mention the Evil Empire while we were on their stream, but yes, it's doing very well
yes.
on Amazon.
Oh, no, please do.
Yeah, it's currently at number 37 overall. That's out of all the books sold on Amazon.
Congratulations to
Yeah.
all you guys.
Number one in several categories. I think it was Chris and I were looking earlier. I think it was up into the top 10 on Audible. So yeah, a lot of people are responding to the book. And as I had emailed the group today, honestly, I think one of the two most rewarding things from this project for me personally is watching readers react to authors who this is their first time discovering. That has been wholly satisfying.
Mm.
I can't tell you how much. So, great.
Well, I know that a lot of the events you guys have been putting together, of course, different groupings of authors and contributors for different events, which is great. Um, but just looking down the list of these contributors, man, it's a who's who. I mean, it's an unbelievable list. And there's some surprises. I was really happy to see Poppy Bright on here. Haven't, I remember her books in the early 90s, and um, great to see her. We have Sean Cosby. We have the inimitable Joe Lansdale, who couldn't be here today, but one of my favorites, and I'm sure yours as well. Tim
Absolutely.
Levin, Alex Segura, Paul Tremblay, uh, Chuck Wendig, and many more. I mean, it's just a fabulous lineup, and also aesthetically, whoever designed this thing, beautiful book.
Oh yeah.
Really
Yeah.
nice. And it kind of weighs in at almost the same page count as the original Stand. I almost said Shining, which would make a great anthology too.
Yeah, no, that's our hope was when we started to sell the book, was we wanted a publisher who would give us pretty much the equal page count to the original novel. We wanted them to bookend each other on a shelf, and we wanted to, like I said, spotlight as much of the genre as we could. It's hard, 100 other authors that we could have easily put into this book.
Yeah.
We couldn't. Um, I don't know, maybe there'll be another anthology down the line and we can fit some of those folks in. I know Gabino texts me 17 times a day already asking me when the next one's coming out. So
Well,
It's,
when's the next one coming out?
well, I was gonna say, Patrick, do you want to ask too? That way it's official.
Yeah, I mean, well, would it be The Shining? Or, I mean,
I
it
mean,
could
in a
be any number of books.
hypothetical world, Chris and I have done the Joe Lansdale tribute anthology. Now we've done the Stan tribute anthology.
Mm,
I know Gabino and I would love to do a tribute to Edward Lee at some point.
mm,
I personally would love to do an anthology focusing on F. Paul Wilson's, not just Repairman Jack, but his entire mythos. Um, if there was going to, if Steve ever said yes again, for me personally, it would have to be the Dark Tower. Um,
So the
I
question here, Brian, is would you use the same contributors?
I mean, Chris would,
No need to answer now, just think about it.
if it was Dark Tower, I'd have him co-editor.
I know.
That's about as much as I
Yeah.
know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. I just thought,
No, that's
sort
okay.
of thought
And just to
I
clarify,
thought I'd ask.
yeah, before the internet reads into that, no, there's no discussion of doing a Dark Tower anthology. Um, so please don't
Actually,
bombard me with.
I have kind of a random question for you, for any of you. I keep thinking of Dan Simmons, who's such an incredible writer.
Mm, mm.
Um, does any of you know kind of what's going on? It seems like he would be a kind of a logical candidate for this kind of thing.
Like Carry Comfort or the Carry Comfort?
What's that?
I was talking about, is it Dan Simmons, is it Carry Comfort?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Carrying Comfort.
Yeah, Carry Comfort, yeah.
And so many books, great books.
I mean,
Mm.
there were so many of those.
Yeah.
Robert R. McCammon, Dan Simmons,
Yeah,
John Skip, Ronald Kelly, so many. Linda Addison. That we just,
Mm.
like I said, the hardest part of this was
Mm.
coming up with that final list and looking at who we just didn't have the room to fit in.
sure. Yeah.
Well,
And
if you do that Ed Lee tribute, and I don't get an invite, I know where you live.
well, I mean, come on. If we do that Edward Lee tribute and you don't submit a story, well, I don't know where you live anymore because you just moved, but I will find you.
Well, before
I
we
was gonna
wrap
say
up,
after we do Ed Lee, we should do Wrath.
Mm.
Let's get to it, right? Because we got the following, keep going.
he's got the
agree.
coolest name, so definitely. A great question's just come in from somebody who has an interesting handle on YouTube, which is Morphia Flow, which I love that. And this is actually for you, Alma.
Oh.
And it says, Alma, based on your background, the setting of your short story, and your current rural home, should we all get the hell out of Dodge?
Oh, I can't claim to know anything there. I mean, I wish I could be more mysterious about it. I mean, honestly, if you're in DC right now, you should get the hell out of Dodge, but not for the reasons that person is inferring. Yeah.
Right.
Is it the end of the world as we know it? It might be.
Yeah, and someone says, are there any issues with the title of the book and the REM song? I don't think things like that are
Yeah, I mean,
right.
you can't really copyright a title. I will say this was this was not the title I wanted to go with. I wanted to go with Captain Trips. Um, and then that got vetoed, and I suggested, how about Among the Living, which is a song by Anthrax, my pals in Anthrax, which is about the stand. And then that got vetoed too. And better minds than mine, meaning marketing people, said, no, we're going to call it The End of the World as we know it.
Let's see. Well, I think that's about it for the questions. Why don't we briefly, before we wrap it up, have each of you tell us what you're working on now and what your latest projects are? Starting with you, Brian.
Um, I am finishing up production on a new feature-length film called Dead Format. I'm the producer, Mike Lombardo, writer and director, and about to start a novel collaboration with a very good up-and-coming horror writer, Laurel Hightower. We're about to collaborate together.
Awesome. We'll go counterclockwise. Wrath, how about you?
Well, I'm currently finishing up the sequel slash prequel to my novel, Rabbit Hunt. In fact, the goal that I set for myself is to have it finished by Sunday. I'm already over the word count that I thought would take me to the end because that happens. And I've still probably got another 10,000 words before I can wrap it up. So we'll see how that goes. And then after that, I have a collaboration with Christopher Triana that I have neglected for a couple of months that I need to jump back on to. So I'll be jumping right into that when this is done.
Gabino.
I'm trying to finish the next one because that's the only thing that counts. Can't spoil it if I don't finish it. And the last thing is we did a thing together for the reissue of Zero Saints and Coyote songs.
That's great.
Also, it feels like it's been 5 years, but I realized the other day House of Bone and Rain only came out a year ago. So I guess I should still be plugging that, but it feels like it was 17 apocalypses ago. But yeah, that's what I'm up to.
That's awesome. Yeah, Mulholland just spread out these really handsome new trade paperbacks
Beautiful. Yeah.
of two of Gabino's earlier books. And we had a really fun program just a month or so ago, I think.
We talked a lot about the people in this book once in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. Meg, how about you? What's up with you?
I am editing a new novel that is, I wanted someplace that was big and featured big personalities and could contain a big thriller plot. So it's set in Texas up the road from where I'm living at the moment in Austin. So that's been a whole lot of fun. And I am also collaborating on another novel with Michael Mann.
No
It's
kidding. Wow.
it's a standalone thriller, an international manhunt thriller, and that's all I can tell you about that at the moment. But that's also a beautiful challenge that I'm loving.
That's exciting. I see a little statue behind you on the shelf there. Could that be Edgar Allan Poe?
It is Edgar Allan Poe. Nothing can kill Edgar Allan Poe. I've taken him through TSA. He survived a house fire without a single mark on him.
Wow.
He is indestructible. Yes,
So we'll see you leaving the burning building with him.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. He's the one thing I could count on coming back to find.
Alma, you have a new book coming out?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, the big poster is it's out of my reach. But Fiend comes out September 16th. The short description is Succession, but horror. And it's sort of what if a family like the Roys actually had a 1,000-year-old demon at their beck and call. And I'm really excited for this one, and I hope people will check it out. And I also may have some new book news in a couple days, so stay tuned.
A couple days.
I know.
But we want it now,
Oh,
Alma.
we can still stay on. We can stay on until you
Yeah,
announce
Yeah,
it.
well,
Yeah.
People
We'll
in
just
publishing
we'll
take
just
a
stay
still a
on.
little
long
time.
Yeah.
we'll go in shifts. It's like 7 o'clock where
Well,
Raph is.
yeah,
He can
yeah,
take
I
the
can
day
just I can
shift.
I have nowhere to be. I can stay on until you have time to announce it.
No,
So
no, 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 no. Sorry, I'm going to try to be discreet this time.
No problem. That's exciting, though.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Is it Catriona or Katrina?
it's really annoying. It's neither. It's Catriona. But yeah, Catriona with a D, Catriona. I mean, they never ever got it right on an audiobook ever. I once asked them to re-record it, and then they re-recorded it just a completely wrong in a completely different way. And it doesn't matter. I just like I just say it wrong myself just to help people
There's another
understand.
author with your same first name, and I made the mistake of pronouncing it wrong, and so
No, but there's three pronunciations. Okay, so there's Irish, which is Catriona, and then there's Highland Scots, which is Katrina, and then there's Lowland Scots, which is Catriona. So
you're the third, Catriona.
that's the one.
Oh,
Catriona. Anyway, why am I talking about my name when I should be talking about my book? I just, I, I mean, um, I, I just finished a novel which is out February 2026, which is a retelling of Peter Pan with a touch of Lord of the Flies, set at a fictionalized version of Michael Jackson's abandoned Neverland Ranch, where they set up a society. Yeah, it's called Nowhere Burning.
cool. Sounds awesome.
I like that.
Let's see.
It's by C. Any pronunciation follows Ward.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's see. Well, what else can I ask you before? I really appreciate all of you taking time out to do this event for us. This is the brand new book, and I know there are lots of folks out there that are interested in collecting, autographed copies of the book. And many of you come through the Poison Pen through the course of a year. So if you're interested, bring it back or ask us to hold one. We'd be happy to, buy two, one that you can read at home and one that we can kind of sit on and collect signatures. How's that for a marketing
Well,
push?
absolutely. I mean, if I can echo it, I thank anyone who's watching this for supporting the Poison Pen. I wasn't joking earlier. One of the absolute best signings in my career that I've ever done. Some of the most fun I've ever had was at your store. You had Weston Oakes and I for an evening, several
Yeah.
years ago. And that was just, man, what a great, I still think about that signing.
Wow.
When I found out Stephen King blurbed my book was when I was doing the event at Poison Pen. And I tell that story all the time because I walked in total shock. I had just heard that he blurbed the book before the event, and I was doing it with Brad Meltzer. And Brad looked at me and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Stephen King just blurbed my book." And there was like 150 people there for him. Nobody knew me. And he turns around and he said, "Stephen King just blurbed your book." And it was just amazing, just an amazing evening. He was so generous. Stephen King, of course, is so generous.
Yeah, he does seem to be
Yeah.
incredibly generous.
He puts the ladder back. He puts the ladder back down. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do,
Um,
do I have time to tell a quick story about Stephen King? I can
please.
keep it short. I can keep it under 2 minutes. Gabino and Rath know this story. The rest of you don't. Um, my absolute best friend I've ever had was author J.F. Gonzalez. And when he passed from a battle with cancer, it impacted me very negatively. Um, to the point where I was so depressed, I decided I was going to quit writing. And I was over at his wife's house that day. I was helping her move some furniture, and I was literally steeling myself up to tell her I'm going to quit. I'm going to walk away. Um, when my phone, all of a sudden, it just starts blowing up text after text after text. And I'm like, what's going on? And everybody's like, Stephen King's on Twitter talking about a book you wrote like 8 years ago. And completely changed my perspective. I pulled myself out of the doldrums and got some therapy and got back to the keyboard. I don't think Steve even knows that story. If he's watching this, he does now. But yeah, you're right, Alma. He's super generous. He does a lot behind the scenes that people will never know about. Super generous guy. Has not forgotten where he came from.
He changed my entire career. I mean, I might as well have written my first two books and thrown them directly into the toilet. But I mean, I might as well. And then the third one, he changed my entire. Yeah, he changed my life and my career. It's not nothing at all.
Yeah, an amazingly generous man, and he's very good to independent bookstores too. I mean, yeah, a saint. Anyway, thanks so much, guys. It's been a lot of fun talking with you, and congratulations on this remarkable book. Hope to see another one before too long. But have a great evening.
With
Thanks.
the same contributors, with the same contributors.
Thanks,
And
Patrick.
thank you,
Sorry.
Okay,
and thank you, Brian.
Yeah,
You're also
Well,
very
thank you so
generous.
much. Yeah, thank you so much.
I feel like I should say good night, John Boy.